And today, if you're a caregiver like me, you're really going to want to pay attention to this episode. Because I know there are times that you feel overwhelmed and burned out, juggling family and friends and a career and caring for a loved one. Sometimes that can lead you to not knowing what to do next. Well, today our guest, Shawanda, is going to, number one, show us what that looks like and what we can do to overcome it. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sgt Q. So welcome to the show, Shawanda.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here, Shawanda. Tell us, what is the one thing that you want people to know about this problem?
I just remember being overwhelmed, burnt out, having the three little caregivers, which is based off real life, my actual children, 5 years apart, wondering how I could be everything that each one of those babies needed, plus myself, while being a nurse dealing with work and that caregiver string itself, while still trying to start a whole new career as an entrepreneur. I about had it. I was burnt out, overwhelmed, tired, couldn't focus. I had to find a solution. And I do realize that most people have not felt all those emotions. However, I'm sure someone that you know yourselves, a caregiver, have felt burnt out, overwhelmed, tired, feeling like, when is this all going to end? Is it going to end well? I believe mental health starts before a crisis. Care can be taught and shared early, and kids and caregivers both carry unspoken stress that in their bodies. What I've realized as a solution to that is sharing your stress, sharing without feeling like a burden. I feel overwhelmed today. Sharing it in routine check-ins, sharing it at the dinner table, before going to school. So sharing your stress, realizing and naming what's actually going on, rest, and just sharing it. You don't have to carry stress. You don't have to go unsupported. Someone is always willing and able to listen to what's going on with you, so you don't burn out, so you don't feel overwhelmed.
Awesome. All right, Shawanda. So how do we know, like you've been putting this into practice. How do we know that it works?
How do we know that it works? Kids regulate and co-regulate by seeing the adults around them regulate it. They pay attention to our body language. They pay attention to our tones and our voice. They understand, hey, if mom's not feeling well today, or mom looks tired, they begin to, or mom looks scary. Mom, this is something new that's going on for mom. I should pay attention. And now that they notice what's going on with their caregiver, they can begin to realize, hey, I recognize this within myself. I realize that I need to tell someone I'm overwhelmed. I need to tell someone I'm a little stressed out. Why? So I can become supported. So this doesn't become an ongoing mental health struggle, when it's something that can be nipped in the bud early, quick, fast, in a hurry.
Okay, great, Shawanda. So now is there some research behind this or other people using this?
Neuroscience shows that children co-regulate by the adults around them. So whether the adults are happy, they're sad, whether, the bills due, if there's, other situations going on, maybe grandpa's is sick. Children recognize what's going on, whether the adults try to keep it a secret. Children co-regulate by the adults around them.
All right, hey, Shawanda, I study the brain all the time. I love neuroscience. And one thing I know is that in neuroscience, your brain loves patterns. It loves to know what's coming next. And so tell us,
Yes.
what's coming next for us?
What's coming next for us is I do have a few tools that help caregivers and educators recognize that the signs and symptoms of stress, overwhelm, and burnout.
Awesome. I'd love to hear it. What are some of the things?
Some of this overwhelm and burnout could be just feeling tired, irritable, not knowing what's coming next, just feeling uncertain, just scared even, hopeless. So that's some of the symptoms of overwhelm and burnout.
Okay, great. Now tell me a story about somebody who you know experienced that.
Even I've honestly experienced overwhelm, tiredness, burnout, irritability, and that's what this project is pretty much based on. And it's not a product of feeling burnout, it's to help someone before it even gets to that point, especially caregivers. And that's why the three little caregivers before the behavior was even created.
That's really important. So people might be wondering, Shawanda, like, who is a caregiver? How do we define a caregiver in today's society? What does that look like?
For one, I am a caregiver. I'm a nurse, a child care health consultant. But it's caregiver can be anyone who cares, honestly. Mom, dad, daycare providers, even working in home. Anyone who cares for someone else can be a caregiver. I was a caregiver as young as 4 years old. I remember that being my first story of me being a nurse. I had no idea I was a caregiver. But after doing this project and really going deep, I was a caregiver at 4 years old.
That's a really good thing to define because at times we're caregivers for different people at different positions in our life. And I never really thought about it that way. I thought like, oh, a caregiver is somebody who gets paid to do this, like you, like a nurse, or somebody who has an aging family member, or maybe somebody with disabilities. Like that's a caregiver. But when you just defined it, it really opened up my eyes to think we're all caregivers at some point
Oh, we
in
are.
life for somebody. That really opens things up. And you're right. It can burn you out. When you have young kids and you're juggling a job and you're newly married, all of that can be very, very overwhelming. It was for me.
Oh, yes. And it happens. You don't even realize it happening. And then that's why it's so important for you to pause and name what's happening so
Mm.
that there is a solution that's happening for you.
You know, I read a study recently. It said that people are struggling with like PTSD specifically, but this correlates to all neuroscience. The study showed that when people could name the emotion they were feeling, it reduced the intensity of that post-traumatic stress by 50%. 50%
Correct.
just by naming it. And that's exactly
Yep.
what you're talking about, Shawanda, is being able to name that and it takes the fear away. It allows your ATC, your anterior cingulate cortex, to pause. And instead of reacting out of emotion, it will now create an action plan to execute.
Correct. That's exactly right. You have to be able to name it. That way, that lets your body and your emotions know, hey, there's an action that can solve this. You don't have to feel sad. You don't have to be overwhelmed. Hey, I notice that my voice is getting higher. Why do I feel like this? So that what naming it is the first step. And I want our listeners to even feel empowered to start small. Something as simple as naming it go into a big step of actually solving some of our mental health struggles.
I love it, Shawanda. I'm a huge fan of that. I talk about that all the time. So, what is one thing you talked about? A tool you built something for our audience to be able to use. What is this tool? Because I want to use it myself.
Yes, thank you. What I created was Before the Behaviors. And what that is a free guide to help caregivers understand their body and what's happening in their body so they can name what's happening in their body so that their mental health struggles can be addressed. And it starts with something as little as naming it. I know that these tools and the science proves it behind, I use it every day. And it's nice to actually have a friend. She is dealing with some mental health with caregiving herself. And I almost wanted to send it to her, this free guide that I have. And I'm like, oh my God, I was creating it for people like me. But so many caregivers have so much unspoken stress. So many, and my situation is not your situation, but we have all felt the stress of caregiving. I mean, we all love grandma, we all love our kids, we all love our school students, but we all feel stressed one way or another by being in that situation. It Care comes with this struggle sometimes because mental health is health.
Man, that's such a powerful tool. That is incredible. Guys, you've got to get this tool. We're going to have it for you on the firstonesfree.com. You guys know the drill. Click the link. We're going to take you there. You're automatically going to get this free tool that you guys can use. So with this tool, Shawanda, what does success look like? Like who's used this before?
Oh, I've used it before, and even creating it, sometimes I actually read it for myself. And that was never the intention, but I even created an audio, and I created an audio for, just caregivers when listening, just helps more than reading it. Sometimes you just don't have the strength to read. So even myself, I have it right here on my computer where I listen to it about 3 times a day because I'm like, wow, I created this. It's excellent. I need this. And I created it.
You know, it's so funny, Shawanda. I say that. Like, I read my book, right? Like my book, Healing Through Service. I'll be reading through that. I'm like, this is so good. Like, I wrote this. I
Yeah.
can't believe I wrote this. This is great. This is
But
great
not only
information.
did I write it, I lived through it. And that's
Yeah.
why it's like, wow, I was really, not only did I read and write this stuff because I can be a nurse, I can be a child care health consultant, but it wasn't until I was applying these tools and recognizing that co-regulation, whoa, my kids are really chilled out because I'm chilled. I'm
Yep.
not stressing about this work. I'm not stressing about, what is it this time, Grant? What is it? The caregiving, a new client I'm taking on. They're seeing mom happy and healthy, and they don't know I had to name the struggle without them looking without them knowing. I had to take a few deep breaths. I had to figure out a solution, but all they recognize is their mother is co-regulated and she understands what's going on.
So we talked a lot about this idea of naming it and what stress looks like. We gave them a really cool tool, but I know my listeners and they always want to take the next step. They always want to know more. So they've heard the episode, they've got this awesome tool, and if they want to know more, what's the next step for them? What do we want to encourage them to take the next step? What does that look like for you?
So I have a paid resource, the Caregiver Regulation Playbook. And what that does, I mentioned I have audio, which lets me go through the playbook when listening is just too much. I have scripts, I have practical tools and modules. And even I plan to host webinars to actually support because most people and even myself feel like support is limited, but it's always someone here to listen. It's always someone to you know help the overwhelm become a little easier, let life's daily struggles become easier. And honestly, I want to create and be that person for someone.
Perfect. Shawanda, this has been a powerful episode. Thank you so much for coming on. Remember, guys, we like to do 3 things here at the Mental Health Janitors: educate you on these issues, empower you with a really cool free resource, and then encourage you to take the next step. So for the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sgt Q, and I'm out.